I found my wife's second phone hidden inside a box of tampons, and what I discovered there changed everything I thought I knew about my marriage. It was a Tuesday afternoon in late September. I was looking for batteries in the bathroom cabinet when I knocked over a box. It fell, and out rolled something that definitely wasn't what should have been in there, a sleek black phone I'd never seen before. My hands were shaking as I picked it up. The screen lit up without a password, and that's when I saw it, hundreds of messages. Photos. Videos. An entire secret life I knew nothing about. My name is Daniel. I'm 37 years old, and until that moment, I thought I had a pretty good marriage. My wife's name is Rebecca. We'd been together for 9 years, married for 6. We had a nice house in suburban Ohio, 2 cars, a golden retriever named Buster. The American dream, right? Wrong. I sat down on the bathroom floor and started scrolling. The messages went back months, maybe even a year. But here's what made my blood run cold. They weren't just with one person. There were multiple conversations. Different names. Different arrangements. But the most frequent contact was someone named M in her phone. Their messages were intimate, detailed, planning meetups when I was supposedly at work. Except here's the thing that didn't make sense. Some of these meetups were scheduled for times when Rebecca told me she was at her book club. Times when she said she was visiting her mom. Times when she claimed she was working late at the hospital where she worked as a nurse. I kept reading, my stomach twisting tighter with each message. Then I found something that made me pause. A message from 2 weeks ago from M that said, "Same place Thursday? I'll bring the usual payment." Payment? But here's the thing that made me feel like the biggest fool in the world. As I sat there reading those messages, I realized the signs had been there all along. I just refused to see them. Or maybe I'd convinced myself there were innocent explanations for everything. Like 3 months ago, when I came home early from a business trip and found Rebecca in the shower at 2 in the afternoon on a Tuesday. She never showered in the middle of the day. When I asked why, she'd said she'd spilled coffee all over herself at work and felt gross. I'd believed her without question. Now I wondered who she'd actually been with that afternoon. Or the new lingerie I'd found in her drawer last month. Black lace, expensive, tags still on. When I'd asked about it, hoping maybe it was meant to be a surprise for me, she'd laughed it off and said she'd bought it on sale months ago and forgot about it. I'd never seen her wear it. Not once. Because it wasn't for me, was it? There were the late-night texts she'd hide by flipping her phone face down whenever I walked into the room. The way she'd started password-protecting everything, her phone, her laptop, even her tablet. For security, she'd said. I'd thought it was reasonable. After all, she worked at a hospital with patient information. But now I knew better. And then there were the mood swings. Some days she'd come home glowing, energetic, affectionate, kissing me, making my favorite dinner, being the woman I fell in love with. Other days she'd be distant, irritable, picking fights over nothing. I'd chalked it up to stress at work, hormones, normal relationship ups and downs. But the pattern made sense now. The good days were probably after she'd seen Marcus or one of the others. The bad days were when guilt crept in, or when plans fell through. The credit card statements I'd stopped checking carefully about a year ago because Rebecca had insisted on handling our finances. "You work so hard, honey. Let me take care of the bills," she'd said. I'd been grateful. One less thing to worry about. But now I wondered what charges I'd missed. What hotels, what restaurants, what gifts for other men I'd unknowingly paid for. Even our intimate life had changed. 6 months ago, Rebecca had suddenly wanted to try new things in the bedroom, things she'd never been interested in before. At the time, I'd been excited, thinking maybe we were entering a new phase of our marriage. Now I realized she was probably just practicing what she'd learned with someone else. The thought made me sick. And the lies. God, the lies. So many little lies that I'd accepted without question. Working late at the hospital. Book club meetings that happened twice a week sometimes. Girls' nights out that lasted until midnight. Visiting her mother who lived 40 minutes away. Trips that somehow took 4 or 5 hours. Yoga classes she'd supposedly joined, but never seemed to lose any weight or gain any flexibility from. Every single excuse, every explanation, every story, all carefully constructed deceptions. The worst part wasn't even the cheating itself. It was realizing how stupid I'd been, how willfully blind, how I'd chosen comfort over truth, chosen to believe in the fantasy of our happy marriage rather than face the reality that something was deeply wrong. I'd ignored every red flag, dismissed every gut feeling, rationalized every suspicious behavior because admitting the truth would mean admitting I'd failed. That my marriage was a lie. That the woman I loved didn't exist. She was just a character Rebecca played when I was around. I scrolled further and found bank transfer screenshots. Rebecca was receiving money. Significant amounts. Hundreds of dollars per meeting. My wife wasn't just having an affair. She was. I couldn't even think the word at first. But there it was, in black and white, undeniable evidence that the woman I shared my bed with every night was living a completely different life during the day. I felt like I couldn't breathe. The bathroom walls seemed to close in around me. 9 years together. 6 years of marriage. And I never suspected a thing. But then something else caught my eye. Recent messages from just yesterday. M had written, "My wife is getting suspicious. We need to be more careful." His wife. I kept scrolling through M's messages, piecing together details. He was married. He had 2 kids. And then I found it, a photo he'd sent to Rebecca months ago. A family photo from what looked like a barbecue. And in that photo, standing next to M, with his arm around a blonde woman, was someone I recognized. Marcus Wellington, my colleague from work. The room started spinning. Marcus, the guy I played poker with on Friday nights. The guy whose kids' birthday parties I'd attended. The guy who'd given a speech at our wedding about how Daniel found the perfect woman. Marcus had been sleeping with my wife, paying my wife, and I'd been completely oblivious. I sat there on the cold bathroom tiles for what felt like hours, but was probably only 20 minutes. My mind was racing through memories, re-examining every interaction, every dinner party, every casual conversation. How many times had Rebecca and Marcus been in the same room, smiling at each other, while I chatted with his wife Linda about gardening or the weather? But I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't throw the phone against the wall like you might expect. Instead, something cold and calculating settled over me. Because as I kept reading those messages, I realized something important. Neither Rebecca nor Marcus knew that I knew. And that gave me power. I carefully put the phone back exactly where I'd found it, hidden in that tampon box. Then I went downstairs, fed Buster, and started dinner like it was any other Tuesday. When Rebecca came home an hour later, she kissed me on the cheek and asked about my day. I smiled and told her it was fine, then asked about hers. She launched into some story about a difficult patient and a doctor who was being unreasonable. The lies flowed so easily from her lips. She'd had years of practice, I realized. We ate dinner together. We watched TV. We went to bed. And I laid there in the dark next to her, listening to her breathing, and planned my next move. See, I could have confronted her right then. Could have thrown her clothes on the lawn, changed the locks, called a lawyer. That's what most people would do. That's what she would expect if she ever found out I knew. But I wasn't most people. And I didn't want a typical divorce where we'd split assets, go to court, and eventually move on with our lives. I wanted something else. I wanted the truth to come out in a way that would make everyone see exactly who Rebecca and Marcus really were. Over the next 3 days, I became a spy in my own home. I documented everything. I made copies of messages from that hidden phone, took photos of the transfer receipts, noted dates and times. I also started paying attention to Rebecca's real schedule versus what she told me. Thursday night, she said she was going to her book club. I waited 20 minutes after she left, then I followed her. Not to catch her in the act. I already had enough evidence of that. No, I followed her because I needed to know exactly where they met. She drove to a hotel on the outskirts of town. A nice place, but not too nice. The kind where you could come and go without attracting much attention. I watched her park and walk into the lobby. 15 minutes later, Marcus's car pulled up. I took photos from my car. Then I drove home and waited. When Rebecca returned 3 hours later, I was watching a basketball game. She came in, looking slightly flushed, her hair a bit messier than when she'd left. "How was book club?" I asked casually. "Oh, same as always. We're reading this mystery novel. Pretty good." She launched into a detailed description of a book she'd never read, discussing characters she'd made up on the spot. She was good at lying. Really good. "Sounds interesting," I said. "Linda called while you were out, by the way." I watched her carefully. Just the slightest flinch. "Linda? What did she want?" "She was looking for Marcus. Said he told her he was working late, but wasn't answering his phone. I told her I'd have Marcus call her if I heard from him." Rebecca's face remained neutral, but I saw her swallow hard. "Oh, well, I'm sure he'll turn up." "I'm sure he will," I agreed. That night, I made my decision. I knew exactly what I was going to do, and it was going to hurt both of them far more than any divorce court ever could. You see, Marcus wasn't just my colleague. He was up for a major promotion at our company. VP of Operations. It was a position he'd been working toward for 5 years. The announcement was scheduled for the company's annual gala next month, a big fancy event where all the employees and their spouses attended. The CEO would make the announcement in front of everyone. Marcus had been bragging about it for weeks. And Rebecca? She was president of the hospital's nursing board, a prestigious volunteer position that gave her influence and respect. The board was hosting their annual charity fundraiser the same weekend as the company gala, an event where she'd be giving a speech about integrity and professional ethics. The irony wasn't lost on me. I spent the next 2 weeks being the perfect husband. I complimented Rebecca. I brought her flowers. I took her out to dinner. I even suggested we invite Marcus and Linda over for a barbecue, which we did. I sat across from Marcus at my own patio table, flipping burgers, watching him laugh at my jokes while knowing exactly what he'd been doing with my wife. Linda was there too, sweet and unsuspecting, talking about their kids' soccer games. I felt bad for her. She didn't deserve this. But she needed to know the truth just like I did. During this time, I was also very busy behind the scenes. I'd made copies of everything from Rebecca's secret phone. I'd hired a private investigator to document a few more of their meetings, getting clear photos and timestamps. I'd contacted a lawyer and filed for divorce, but I told the lawyer to hold off on serving the papers until I gave the signal. I also did something else, something that would become the centerpiece of my revenge. I created a video. Not a long one, just about 5 minutes. It was a simple slideshow, really. Messages between Rebecca and Marcus, transfer receipts showing payments, photos of them entering and leaving that hotel, all set to a nice neutral background with dates and timestamps clearly visible. No music, no commentary. Just facts. Just evidence. Just the truth. Then I made copies of this video. Lots of copies. The night of the company gala arrived. Rebecca had her nursing board event the same evening, so we'd be at separate events. Perfect. I got dressed in my best suit. Rebecca looked beautiful in her blue dress, the one I'd bought her for her birthday last year. She kissed me goodbye and told me to have fun at my boring work party. I told her good luck with her speech. I arrived at the gala early. The ballroom was gorgeous, crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths, a full bar. Colleagues were mingling, everyone dressed up and excited. Marcus was there with Linda, both of them smiling and shaking hands. Marcus saw me and waved. I waved back. I found the AV tech who was running the presentation equipment for the evening. His name was Brian, a young guy who worked in our IT department. I'd already talked to him earlier in the week. Hey Brian, remember those adjustments we discussed for the presentation tonight? He nodded. Yeah, I've got your file ready to go. You sure about this, man? I'm sure. It's your funeral, he said, but he gave me a thumb drive. It'll play right after the CEO makes the VP announcement. I thanked him and found my seat. The evening proceeded normally. Dinner, small talk, awards for various achievements. I sat at my table, eating my chicken, drinking my wine, watching Marcus across the room. He was glowing with anticipation. This was his night. Finally, the CEO took the stage. And now for the announcement you've all been waiting for. Our new Vice President of Operations will be. The room held its breath. Marcus Wellington. Applause erupted. Marcus stood up, kissed Linda, and walked to the stage, shaking hands and grinning. He gave a short speech about dedication and teamwork and the future of the company. Everyone clapped. He was on top of the world. And now, the CEO said, Marcus has prepared a short video about his vision for the department. This was it. The lights dimmed. The screen behind the stage lit up. And instead of Marcus's carefully prepared presentation about operational efficiency, my video began to play. It took people a few seconds to realize something was wrong. The first slide showed text messages. Marcus to Rebecca, explicit messages about their last meeting. People started murmuring. Then came the photos. Marcus and Rebecca entering the hotel. Timestamps clearly visible. The murmuring grew louder. Then came the bank transfers. Payments from Marcus to Rebecca. Hundreds of dollars per meeting. Dozens of transactions. The room erupted. People were standing up, pointing at the screen, talking loudly. Marcus was frozen on stage, his face white as a sheet. He turned to look at the screen behind him, then back at the audience. His mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. Linda stood up from her seat, her hand over her mouth, tears already streaming down her face. The CEO was frantically signaling to cut the video, but Brian had locked the system as I'd instructed. The video played all the way through, all 5 minutes of it. Every message, every photo, every payment. When it finally ended and the lights came back up, the room was in chaos. The CEO was red-faced and furious. Marcus had stumbled off the stage and was being confronted by Linda, who was screaming at him through her tears. Colleagues were staring at me. They'd figured out pretty quickly who was behind this. I stood up, straightened my tie, and walked calmly toward the exit. On my way out, I passed Marcus. He grabbed my arm. "Daniel, I can explain." I looked down at his hand on my arm, then up at his face. "No need," I said quietly. "I think the video explained everything pretty clearly." I pulled my arm free and walked out of the ballroom. Behind me, I could hear Linda's crying and Marcus trying to stammer some kind of defense. I didn't look back, but I wasn't done yet. I drove across town to the hospital where Rebecca's nursing board charity event was being held. It was a more formal affair, a seated dinner with a silent auction. Rebecca would be giving her speech right about now. I walked into the ballroom just as she was on stage, talking about professional integrity and the importance of ethical standards in healthcare. The irony was almost too much. I made my way to the back of the room where the event coordinator was managing the evening's program. I'd spoken with her earlier in the week too, introduced myself as Rebecca's proud husband who wanted to surprise her with a tribute video. "Is it ready?" I asked her. She smiled. "Yes, we'll play it right after her speech, like you requested." "Perfect." Rebecca finished her speech to applause. She looked proud, accomplished. She had no idea what was coming. "And now," the coordinator announced, "we have a special tribute video from Rebecca's husband, Daniel." Rebecca looked surprised but pleased. She smiled at me from the stage as the lights dimmed. The same video began to play. I watched Rebecca's face as the first messages appeared on the screen. Her smile faltered, then vanished. Then her face went pale. She turned to look at the screen, then out at the audience, then found me standing in the back of the room. Our eyes met across the crowded ballroom. In hers, I saw shock, horror, panic. In mine, she must have seen nothing but cold finality. The room erupted just like at the company gala. Board members were gasping. People were pulling out their phones to record the screen. Rebecca's mother stood up from her table and started crying. Rebecca stumbled off the stage. She tried to rush toward the exit, but several board members stopped her, demanding explanations. I didn't stay to watch the aftermath. I'd seen enough. I walked out into the cool night air and got in my car. My phone was already ringing. Rebecca, Marcus, people from work, Rebecca's friends. I ignored them all. Instead, I drove to a lawyer's office where I'd arranged to meet after the events. I signed the divorce papers. The lawyer assured me they'd be served to Rebecca first thing in the morning. Then I drove to a small apartment I'd rented the week before. It was temporary, just until I figured out my next steps. I'd moved some of my essential belongings there over the past few days. Clothes, important documents, photos of my parents who'd passed away years ago. I sat in that empty apartment, in the silence, and waited for the guilt to come. Waited to feel bad about what I'd done. Waited to regret the public humiliation I'd inflicted. But it never came. Instead, I felt light, free, like I'd been carrying a weight I didn't know was there, and I'd finally set it down. My phone kept ringing through the night. Text messages poured in. Some from friends expressing shock and support. Some from Rebecca, begging me to talk to her, telling me I'd ruined her life. Some from Marcus, angry and defensive. I didn't respond to any of them. Around 2 a.m., I finally got a text that made me smile. It was from Linda. "Thank you for showing me who I was really married to. I hope you're okay." I texted back. "I will be. I hope you will be too." The divorce was finalized 6 months later. Rebecca tried to contest it, tried to get more from the settlement, but with all the evidence I had, her lawyer advised her to accept my terms. She got to keep her car and some of her personal belongings. I kept the house and most of our assets. It seemed fair, considering. Marcus lost his promotion, obviously. The company decided to restructure his position, which is corporate speak for demotion. He and Linda divorced too. Last I heard, he'd moved to another state. Rebecca lost her position on the nursing board. The hospital didn't fire her. They couldn't really, as she hadn't done anything illegal. But the respect she'd once commanded was gone. She transferred to a different facility in another city a few months after the divorce. As for me, I sold the house in Ohio. Too many memories, both good and bad. I took a job offer in Colorado, something I'd been considering for years, but never pursued because Rebecca didn't want to move. I bought a small cabin in the mountains. Buster loved it. People ask me sometimes if I regret how I handled things. If I wish I'd done it privately, just divorced quietly and moved on. The answer is no. Because here's what I learned. Rebecca and Marcus didn't just betray me and Linda. They betrayed everyone who believed in them, who trusted them, who looked up to them. Rebecca stood on that stage and talked about integrity while living a lie. Marcus accepted a promotion meant for people with character while having none himself. They needed to be exposed not just to their spouses, but to everyone who'd been fooled by their masks. Sometimes the truth needs to be public because the deception was public too. Did it hurt them? Absolutely. Did it humiliate them? Without question. But they did that to themselves. I just turned on the lights. A year after everything happened, I was hiking near my cabin when I stopped to rest at a scenic overlook. The valley below was beautiful, pine trees, a river, mountains in the distance. Buster was chasing butterflies nearby. And for the first time in longer than I could remember, I felt genuinely happy. My phone buzzed. A text from a number I didn't recognize. I hope you rot in hell for what you did. You destroyed my life. Rebecca. She'd gotten a new number. I looked at the message for a moment, then at the valley below, then at Buster who'd come to sit beside me, panting happily. I deleted the message without responding. She was wrong. I didn't destroy her life. She destroyed it herself, one lie at a time, one betrayal at a time. I just made sure everyone else could see what I'd finally seen. The truth. And the truth, no matter how painful, is always better than a beautiful lie. Thank you for watching the video to the end. YouTube may no longer suggest my channel to you, so subscribe to it to receive new interesting stories. You will also help the channel grow and improve the quality of its content. A playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to is now displayed on the screen. You can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.